This is the Dive Into Discovery podcast, where curiosity meets insight, and every conversation uncovers a new layer of understanding.
All right, ready to dive into Stonehenge?
Always ready for a good mystery.
It's one of those places, right?
Yeah.
Captures the imagination, not just a pile of rocks.
Oh, definitely not. It's a glimpse into like a whole different world, a world without written records.
Exactly. We have to decode their world through, well, stones and celestial alignments. It's amazing what you've gathered here. Articles, research papers, even some travel brochures.
You really went all out.
Had to do Stonehenge justice. So let's unlock some secrets. First things first, the purpose. What was Stonehenge for? Temple, observatory, burial ground.
All of the above. Maybe. That's the million-dollar question. Or, well, the multi-millennia-dollar question, I guess. Scholars have been debating that for centuries.
And probably will for centuries more. It's like a giant puzzle with no instruction manual.
Yeah, but we have some pieces. We know Stonehenge wasn't built overnight. Imagine construction spanning over 1,500 years, starting around 3100 BCE. That's longer than the entire history of the Roman Empire.
Wow. So many generations working on this one project. That blows my mind. And you mentioned two types of stones, right? The massive sarsens and the smaller bluestones.
Right. And those bluestones are key to understanding like the scale of this whole thing. They weren't local. They were transported from the Presley Hills in Wales, over 140 miles away.
140 miles. They transported those stones 140 miles.
That's incredible.
Why go through all that trouble? Did those bluestones have some special property?
It's a question that's led to tons of theories. Some believe they were associated with healing or spiritual power, adding another layer to their significance, you know.
Yeah, and don't forget those sarsens, hauling those 50-ton stones from 25 miles away.
Using wooden sledges and rollers, probably.
I can barely move a sofa. Okay, but this brings up another piece of the puzzle, right? The astronomical aspect. You said Stonehenge isn't just randomly placed.
Oh, not at all. It's aligned with the solstices, particularly the summer solstice sunrise and winter solstice sunset.
So it's like a giant ancient calendar, carefully designed to track the movements of the sun.
Absolutely. It shows a deep understanding of archaeoastronomy, how ancient people understood and used the sky.
So it had a practical purpose, marking key points in the solar year.
Right.
But was there something more? Did those alignments have a deeper meaning, like a spiritual one?
Well, we have some evidence that suggests that.
Like what?
Okay, well, think about the Aubrey holes. Those 56 pits encircling Stonehenge, they contain cremated human remains. It points to some kind of ritualistic activity going back to the earliest phases of Stonehenge.
So it was a place of spiritual importance long before those iconic stones even arrived. Wow, it's like history in layers. Tell me about those burials. Were they just practical, or was there something more to them?
Well, finding cremated remains of at least 63 individuals definitely suggests a deeper connection to ritualistic or ceremonial practices.
It's almost like Stonehenge was a bridge between worlds, honoring ancestors, connecting with the cycle of life and death.
And that idea is strengthened when we think about its connection to other sites nearby. The processional avenue leading to the River Avon.
Like a pilgrimage route, leading to this sacred destination.
Exactly. And there's also Woodhenge, a timber circle not far from Stonehenge, also aligned with the solstices.
So it's like this whole network of ritual spaces,
Yeah.
reflecting different aspects of life and belief. Amazing. But who were the people who created all this?
Well, DNA evidence links them to the Beaker people. It's a European culture known for their pottery.
So there was cultural exchange, maybe even migration across vast distances, and Stonehenge was at the heart of it. It's just incredible. Okay, imagine this. We travel back in time, witness a ceremony at Stonehenge. What would we see?
That's a question that really sparks the imagination, huh? Well, given what we know, probably ceremonies around the movements of the sun. Maybe processions, chanting, offerings to deities associated with the cosmos.
Wow, that image is incredible. To feel that energy, hundreds, maybe even thousands of people gathered together, connected by this shared belief system, must have been awe-inspiring.
And don't forget the acoustics. The circular shape, the placement of the stones, it could have amplified those sounds, creating a truly immersive experience.
Okay, hold on. Before we go any further, what about the sound chamber theory? Can you explain that?
Oh, sure. Recent studies show that Stonehenge might have acted as a giant amplifier. So imagine the chanting, the drumming, the spoken words, all resonating throughout the space.
Wow. So it wasn't just a visual spectacle, it was multisensory. Sight and sound designed to create this incredible experience.
Right. It makes you think about the role of sound in ancient rituals, something we often overlook.
Did they do that on purpose? I mean, consider the acoustics when placing those stones. Were they masters of sound as well as stone?
It's an interesting thought. It speaks to their sophistication and ingenuity, for sure. They weren't just stacking stones, they were crafting an experience.
And speaking of the experience, the sheer scale of Stonehenge is just awe-inspiring. We've touched on moving the stones, but what about the actual construction? Erecting those sarsens, getting those lintels on top?
It's where their engineering brilliance really shines. No cranes, no bulldozers, just basic physics and a lot of manpower. Imagine the coordination to raise those multi-ton stones.
It's like a scene from a documentary, teamwork on an epic scale. But it wasn't just brute force, right? They had to consider alignment, the solstices, maybe even sacred geometry.
Absolutely. We're talking astronomy, engineering, maybe even mathematics. Some believe Stonehenge incorporates the golden ratio. You know, that mathematical proportion found in nature.
So it's a giant, ancient calculator. Wow. We really underestimate prehistoric society sometimes.
We definitely do. These people had knowledge and skills, capable of amazing feats, and we're still uncovering their secrets.
It makes you wonder what else is hidden in those stones, what stories they could tell. I think we've covered a lot for now. Our listener probably has a lot to think about. Should we take a break and come back to explore more of Stonehenge's mysteries?
Sounds like a good plan. We'll be back soon to continue our deep dive into the mysteries of Stonehenge.
Back again, delving deeper into Stonehenge. Before the break, we were talking about the incredible engineering and astronomy behind it. But Stonehenge wasn't isolated, right? Part of a larger network of sites.
Exactly, a whole ritual landscape.
Like Durrington Walls. You mentioned it was a bustling Neolithic settlement just a couple of miles from Stonehenge.
Durrington Walls is a crucial piece of the puzzle. It wasn't just a village, it was massive, possibly the largest settlement in Britain at the time.
Really? Wow.
Excavations have shown houses, workshops, evidence of feasting, spaces for large gatherings.
So like a vibrant hub of activity, contrasting with the more ceremonial, almost otherworldly vibe we imagine at Stonehenge.
A good way to put it, and the fascinating part. Evidence suggests Durrington Walls was mostly inhabited during winter, while Stonehenge activity seems to peak around the summer solstice.
Like a seasonal migration pattern, moving between these two sites depending on the time of year. Why do you think that was?
Some researchers suggest a symbolic duality in their beliefs. Durrington Walls associated with life, feasting, the everyday world, while Stonehenge, with its solstice alignments and burial sites, represented death, ancestors, the sacred.
Wow, I love that idea. Physically moving between those two fundamental parts of existence, the earthly realm of Durrington Walls and the more spiritual domain of Stonehenge.
And the processional avenue, that path leading from the river towards Stonehenge, would have been a key part of those journeys.
I can picture it, a procession of people heading from Durrington Walls towards Stonehenge. As the summer solstice approaches, carrying offerings, getting ready for rituals, anticipating that connection with the cosmos.
Exactly. And then there's Woodhenge, that timber circle aligned with the solstices, not too far from Stonehenge. What role do you think it played?
It definitely adds another layer to this whole ritual landscape.
It does. Remember the Aubrey holes at Stonehenge? We talked about those.
Yeah.
Well, Woodhenge has similar ritual deposits, including human remains, particularly those of infants and children.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating. And a bit sad, too.
It is. Makes you wonder if Woodhenge was tied to rites of passage, fertility, maybe a focus on birth and renewal.
Contrasting with the focus on death and ancestors at Stonehenge.
Exactly. It shows the complexity of their beliefs, not just simple rituals. It was a carefully thought out worldview, trying to understand and be in harmony with nature, life and death, the cosmos.
It's incredible. We've been talking about these grand themes, cosmology, ritual, but what about everyday life for the people who lived in this landscape?
Well, Durrington Walls tells us a lot about that. The things they found there, pottery, tools, weapons, jewelry, even musical instruments.
So they had music. That's cool.
They did. These objects give us glimpses into their craftsmanship, their artistic sense, their routines.
So they weren't just focused on Stonehenge. They had a rich culture. Art, music, creating beautiful things. What about their society? Was it hierarchical or more communal?
Hard to say for sure. Projects like Stonehenge suggest organization, coordinating labor and resources, but there's also evidence of communal feasts, shared rituals, so a strong sense of community.
It's amazing to imagine their social dynamics, their leaders, their decision-making. Did they have chiefs, councils? Or was it something else?
We can't know for sure, but their beliefs and rituals probably shaped their interactions a lot.
Right. We don't have written records about their myths or deities, but it seems like they had a deep reverence for nature, a belief in the afterlife.
Probably a whole pantheon of gods and goddesses, each connected to different parts of the natural world.
And that spirituality was woven into everything: agriculture, social interactions, their relationship with the land.
It makes you wonder how they saw Stonehenge. Was it a gateway to the afterlife, a place to commune with ancestors, a cosmic calendar?
Yeah, so many possibilities. We can use the evidence to try and reconstruct their worldview, but we'll never fully know.
That's part of what makes it so fascinating, isn't it? The mystery keeps us going.
But we have to be careful not to project our own modern ideas onto them.
Right. It's a tricky balance. We use our knowledge and imagination, but we have to be aware of the limits of our understanding. We can't just assume they saw things the way we do.
It's a good reminder that the past is a different world. We can learn from it, but we need to approach it with humility.
Exactly. Stonehenge reminds us that even without written records, we can learn about the beliefs, practices, and ingenuity of our ancestors.
Speaking of ingenuity, let's talk about how they actually built Stonehenge. Moving those stones is one thing, but how did they lift and position them?
It's really remarkable. They didn't have modern tools, just an understanding of physics, levers, ropes, rollers, and a lot of people working together.
It boggles the mind. How did they raise those massive lintels, the ones across the top?
One theory is they used massive earthen ramps to raise the lintels up, then carefully maneuvered them into place on top of the uprights.
That sounds so precise and dangerous.
Yeah.
Must have been an amazing feeling to set those final lintels and complete the circle.
Absolutely, and a true testament to human ingenuity.
But it wasn't just about strength. It was about weight distribution, stability, precise alignment, making sure everything was in the right place, aligned with the solstices.
A perfect blend of engineering and symbolism.
We've talked about sacred geometry being incorporated into the design, the idea that certain shapes and proportions have spiritual meaning.
Researchers have found the golden ratio in the layout of Stonehenge. It's a mathematical proportion found all over in nature, often associated with beauty and harmony.
So they encoded their beliefs and knowledge right into the monument, using geometry as a language.
Exactly. But why? Some believe it was a way to harmonize the structure with the cosmos. Others say it enhanced its spiritual power.
So it wasn't just about visual impact. It was about creating something spiritually charged, in tune with the universe.
Right. It shows that Stonehenge wasn't just a functional structure. It was a work of art, too.
It makes you wonder, was there a mastermind behind it all? Some visionary leader who understood all the different aspects, practical and symbolic.
We may never know their names or their stories, but their legacy lives on in those stones.
Speaking of questions, what role did sound play at Stonehenge? We talked about the sound chamber theory, but what kinds of sounds filled that space?
That's where we have to use our imaginations. We know music and sound were important in rituals across different cultures. It's very likely they incorporated sound into their ceremonies, too.
Can you imagine it? Drums echoing across the plains, ancient instruments, chanting voices maybe calling out to their gods or ancestors.
And those sounds reverberating through Stonehenge, amplified and distorted, must have been an incredible experience.
It's like they were creating a portal to another dimension, adding a whole other layer to the rituals.
Exactly. It's something we need to think about when we study ancient sites. It's not just the physical stuff, it's the whole sensory experience.
It makes you wish you could go back in time, be there, witness it all firsthand.
It does. But we can still use our imaginations, guided by the evidence, to get a glimpse of their world.
Okay, let's get back to the tangible stuff, the archaeological discoveries. What are some of the key findings that tell us about Stonehenge?
Well, our understanding is always evolving as we learn more. One of the most exciting recent discoveries is the Superhenge.
Superhenge. Okay, I have to hear about this.
It's not just a pit, it's a massive enclosure, 6 times the size of Stonehenge, near Durrington Walls. It had a huge timber circle inside, probably used for ceremonies, and it's older than Stonehenge.
Wow, so something even bigger than Stonehenge came before it. That's incredible. What happened to the timber circle?
They took it down maybe as part of a ritual or a change in beliefs, and some of the timbers were used to build something new at Stonehenge, the bluestone horseshoe in the center.
So they were repurposing those sacred materials, adding to the story of Stonehenge. It's like they were constantly reimagining this sacred space.
They were. Ritual landscapes weren't static. They evolved over time, reflecting the beliefs and needs of the people using them.
It's like a history book written over and over again.
Yeah.
Each generation adding their own layer to the story.
That's a great way to think about it. It reminds us that even though we may never have all the answers, the journey of discovery is just as important.
It's about the mystery, the possibilities, the wonder of encountering something so ancient and enigmatic.
Absolutely. And maybe in trying to understand these mysteries, we learn something about ourselves too, about our own connection to the past and our search for meaning.
Well said. But we've been talking for a while now. I'm sure our listener wants some time to process all this.
Good idea. We'll be back soon to wrap up our deep dive into the mysteries of Stonehenge.
Back again for our final look at Stonehenge. It's amazing how much we've uncovered already. From the engineering to the astronomy, the rituals, the landscape.
And yet there's still this feeling, of awe and wonder.
Oh, definitely. We've talked about so many theories and interpretations, but I keep thinking about the people, the human side of Stonehenge. We've touched on their emotions, but I'd like to dig a little deeper.
The human element is crucial, isn't it? We focus on their achievements, the physical stuff, but they were driven by the same things we are. Emotions.
Right. Imagine being there, surrounded by those massive stones. The weight of history and tradition. What do you think they felt?
It's a good question. We can use the evidence and what we know about human psychology. The scale of Stonehenge alone must have been awe-inspiring. It makes you feel small, doesn't it? Reminds you of the power of collective effort.
Yeah, like standing in a cathedral. Humbling. But you also mentioned Stonehenge as a place of ritual, connected to life and death. Were there darker emotions too? Fear, maybe?
Possibly. Death was a constant part of life back then. And the rituals, they were probably complex. A mix of grief and fear, but also hope. Maybe a desire to connect with those who had passed on.
It's like Stonehenge was more than just a monument. It was a place where people dealt with their deepest fears and hopes, trying to find meaning.
And those emotions, those experiences, they're woven into the very fabric of the place. It's part of what makes it so powerful.
We also explored the idea of Stonehenge as a place of healing. People traveling from far away, desperate for cures.
Imagine that journey. Days, maybe weeks, carrying the burden of illness. The hope they must have felt coming to this sacred place.
It reminds you that some things never change, do they? The desire for health, for a sense of control over your life.
And Stonehenge, with its connection to the cosmos, to something bigger than themselves, maybe it gave them that hope.
It's amazing how one place can evoke so much. Connecting us to those who came before, we're all part of the same human story, even across thousands of years.
We are, but even with everything we've learned, there are still unanswered questions. Mysteries that continue to puzzle us.
It's true. It's like we have a few pieces of the puzzle, but we're missing so many others.
And that's part of the allure, isn't it? It keeps us searching, exploring, wondering.
Absolutely. Like the transportation of those bluestones. We know they came from Wales, but the exact methods, the routes, it's still debated.
Land routes, water routes, rollers, sledges, rafts, maybe even ceremonial processions. So many possibilities.
It's like trying to trace the steps of a ghost. To imagine a journey that happened thousands of years ago, it really makes you realize how much knowledge has been lost.
It does, but that's what's so exciting about archaeology. We're constantly discovering, uncovering, trying to understand.
And then there's the question of sacred geometry. We talked about it being incorporated into the design, but we still don't fully understand it.
It suggests a level of knowledge and sophistication that we're just starting to grasp. Maybe there's a hidden language in the stones waiting to be decoded.
It's a thought-provoking idea. I wonder what else is hidden there, waiting to be discovered.
It's exciting, isn't it? Stonehenge keeps giving us more to think about.
It reminds us that the past is still alive. It's all around us, waiting to be understood.
It's an invitation to keep exploring, to keep asking questions, to never lose that sense of wonder.
Stonehenge is a testament to the human spirit, our creativity, our ingenuity, our search for meaning.
A legacy for all of us, connecting us to the past, to each other.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I hope we've inspired you to learn more, to keep digging, to keep that curiosity alive.
That's what it's all about. The quest for knowledge never ends. Keep asking those questions.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. It's been incredible. Until next time, keep exploring.
What did you think of this week's episode? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to join us next time as we dive even deeper. And as always, stay curious, because you never know what discoveries are just around the corner.